Life, be your own boss, start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Ever wanted a career in football? From TV deals to player transfers, football is now a global multi-billion-dollar industry in need of qualified professionals who know the sport inside and out. Brought to you by the Global Institute of Sport, the Masters of Football Business is delivered by experts from Australia and around the world. Learn online with unique access to networking and guest speaker events at the iconic MCG. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree. Apply now to start in February 2022. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. gis.sport/FNR.
Vickery looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind Topo Stanley? It doesn't matter! Costa Barbarouses! Wow!
Like a salmon, a spawning salmon. And Diamanti again! Oh, he's done it!
Unbelievable kick from Maria.
Big week in Australian football, and we here at the Oz Football Hour on FNR Football Nation Radio are here to break it down for you. Josh Parrish and Jason Goldsmith with you till 7 p.m. This show brought to you by the Global Institute of Sport. Kickstart your career in football business. Check out their Football Business Master's degree, available online with touchpoints at the MCG. gis.sport/FNR is the place to go to find out more. Jason, we're going to start with the Socceroos, who dispatched Vietnam 4-0 at Amy Park last week. They face a crunch game against Oman overnight, 3 a.m. kickoff, the devil's hour for that one. But we'll start with you and start with that game because the atmosphere at Amy Park was incredible and you were in attendance.
I was, Josh. It was a great atmosphere. I think the Socceroos active were as loud as I can remember in recent years. They did a very good job. But the real atmosphere was created by the number of Vietnamese fans there as well. There's about 10,000 or estimated 10,000 Vietnamese fans. And geez, they made some noise when they had their brief moments of attack. It was really, really, really good atmosphere and a fitting result, 4-0. We should have beaten them by that score, I think.
The match got out to a pretty outrageous start with Rogic opening the scoring after 19 seconds, only
What
for
a start, I know.
the VAR to call the referee over to the sideline and rule out for an offside infringement. Jackson Irvine, in the referee's judgment anyway, standing in the line of sight of the goalkeeper. But that sort of set the tone, that early pressure. I mean, it was a great performance because that's what you want at home, to kind of overwhelm the visiting opposition with that burst of energy in the first 10 minutes.
And Rogic continued for the rest of the game in that vein, really. You want someone of his size and ability and calibre to almost bully the teams like this. Like he played the right game for us, what we should do when we're at home to a team that's on the bottom of the group. So it really was a great start and the crowd were up for it after that. Like I think nothing better than getting everyone ready and pumped up in the first 19 seconds or whatever it was. Took a little while to come back into it after that, but 2 goals in the first half and 2 in the second from some subs. First goals ever to, Goodwin and McGree in the national team. So it was, it's really good. So 3 a.m, are you going to get up for it?
I am, but I probably will regret it.
It's always the way, isn't it? But I think this will help get some match fitness ready for the World Cup later in the year because some of the game times are going to be around 3 a.m.
Well, that's if we're there, Jason. I guess we'll be watching it anyway, but...
Well, just on that too. So the games tonight, we're third in the group. Mm-hmm. Saudi Arabia are playing Japan, first versus second at about 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. We probably want, if it's a draw, we were going to jump to second, but we probably want Saudi Arabia to win the group for us to pinch that second spot and some automatic qualification.
Yeah, so the state of play, Saudi Arabia first place on 19 points, facing Japan tonight on 15 points. Australia on 14 points ahead of Oman on 7. It is officially the last roll of the dice for Oman tonight, so you'd expect them to take a few more risks than they otherwise would, given that they need 3 points if they're going to have any chance of overtaking Australia, which is looking a bit of a distant proposition, but still.
Yeah, but they should too, because we aren't very strong in the Middle East. It's proven as well. I read some whispers that there might be some COVID problems with the Omani team. I know there's no crowd in Muscat for this game for those reasons, but there might be some issues with the players. But we've got, on the other side of that, Arnie has been deemed fit to travel across, and he'll be taking the reins after he coached via phone or via Zoom last Thursday.
I like to think it was a giant red Cold War style phone down to the bench with Rene Mullenstein on the line.
Yeah, so, well, Rene's got a good record now. Is he 1-1?
Best Socceroos coach of all time.
He got the record. So it was good. But I'm not sure we learnt too much about the Socceroos on Thursday night, but we just got some guys into a little bit of form, which is nice, and a couple of South Aussies in Goodwin and McGree, as I mentioned, getting their first ever goals for the Socceroos, which will always help with the confidence, especially when they again need to finish in that in the final third.
Goodwin's goal, great finish. I don't think you're going to get that chance against a good defence. It was a long clearance from Matt Ryan that just missed everybody, and Goodwin's chip over the goalkeeper was the kind of quality that we've come to expect from him in those goal-scoring positions. So he's a handy player to have in the squad when he's in good nick.
They're decent bench players at that stage, and a couple of new caps too. So Marco Tilio got his first cap off the bench in that sort of impact role, and King played the full 90 minutes in defence and secured a move overseas as well. So it's been a big week for him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not going to play tonight. Graham Arnold said he was really proud of the way that Joel King played, said it was one of the most mature debuts in a high-pressure game that he'd ever seen. But since it had been a kind of overwhelming week for Joel King, and he's got this move abroad to Scandinavia lined up as well, he won't go back to Sydney after this match in the Middle East. He'll just continue on to Europe. It was a bit of an overwhelming, emotional time for him, and he didn't want to chuck him in the deep end again and against Oman. So Aziz Bayic, the more experienced incumbent, who was delayed by a blizzard of all things in Istanbul, will make it in time to take up his starting spot on the left-hand side of the defence. The conundrum for me is in midfield.
Yes.
Because Aydin Hrustic, who was suspended for this game, against Vietnam, is back in contention. Do you go with the same Moy, Irvine, Rogic midfield three for this one? Or do you try and incorporate Hrustic elsewhere in the team because he does have some versatility in that regard? Do you drop one of those players to bring him back in? What's the go here? Is it horses for courses? Do we have to think about this game differently to how we thought about a game against a team on the bottom of the group?
Yeah, good question. Tactics is not really my strong point in terms of this, but I mean, the front three of us, you've got to, when we have, Boyle, McLaren and Leckie, maybe we have four in the middle. Hrustic's our best player, so he is our best player. He's playing at the highest level of most of our team. Yeah. He has to play because we need him in form for the national team. He's a great dead ball specialist. He's creating for our guys, and we want him to be confident because let's hope we beat Oman, but the big games for us are the last two of the group, right? So come March, where Sydney hosts the Socceroos against Japan, and then Saudi Arabia away. They're the bigger two in terms of qualification to trying to sneak that or pinch that second spot. So I would have Hrustic in the team. If you're going with that midfield three, I think Rogic was clearly our man of the match. So I thought last game against Vietnam, and yeah, Jackson Irvine is in some great form as well. So maybe it's Aaron Moy that sits this one out.
Yeah, for me, Aaron Moy, even though he had a reasonable game against Vietnam, is probably the player to make way. And that's probably the simplest way to accommodate Hrustic in the team, because Moy, although he did what was asked of him, he was the deepest midfielder, he was directing traffic, basically just recycling possession and spraying the ball around. For most of the game, aside from maybe a 15-minute stretch at the start of the second half, he wasn't put under any real pressure from the Vietnamese team. They were sitting very deep. They weren't able to get near him. Yep. And they were too worried about Rogic's movement between the lines and trying to pick him up and stop him to actually apply pressure on the ball when Moy had it. So for me, I don't think his performance justifies him continuing necessarily in that spot. And potentially Hrustic, Irvine, Rogic for this game is probably the most likely starting 11. But the other way you could spin this is that Hrustic had a couple of great games for the national team playing on the right-hand side, cutting into his left foot. So if Leckie is the player to drop out and Martin Boyle can move over to the other flank, because Leckie's performance, maybe a divided opinion, wasn't the best in terms of end product, then you could keep your same midfield trio for this one.
That would work. I think the only question on Leckie is his finishing. I mean, it took him a long time to score his first Socceroos goal as well, and then he had plenty of chances early too against Vietnam, so it's his finishing. So that's why... Boyle has finished for us constantly. He's been a great asset to the team since he pledged his allegiance and joined the Australian side. So interesting one. The other one that really impressed me seeing live for the first time was Fran Karacic. I thought he was very impressive in his ability to get down and cross it in. He was fantastic. So I hope they continue with him. I know Ryan Grant's a bit of a favourite of Graham Arnold, and not so many of the fans sometimes, but we'll see how that one works out too.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Fran Karacic was out of the team for a little while, but it was revealed that he actually was dealing with long COVID.
Yep.
So he wasn't playing at his club side either. Now he's back playing in Serie B. You'd assume that he's a shoe-in to start again, considering his performance in that last match, unless he's pulled up really sore. And we never know, with these turnarounds, how much squad rotation is necessary. But we've had 3-4 day turnarounds with the national team before in conjunction with these long-haul flights. This one is, you've got almost a full week. So I wouldn't suggest that, barring any niggles and injuries, you really have to rotate the team for energy depletion.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. No, I wouldn't have thought so. I think it'd be pretty standard to where we went, maybe those one or two tweaks that we mentioned in terms of Bajic and Hrustic. And they're probably the two guys that are playing at the highest level for us anyway, so you want them to be automatic inclusions for us too.
Yeah. The other thing that I guess arose from this game was the amazing atmosphere at Amy Park, and it wasn't just the Socceroos fans in attendance, but the Vietnamese fans who came out in numbers and made it a packed house. It's always the existential question with Australian soccer. How do we get more people to the games? How do we get more people to watch on TV? Why don't all these people follow the A-League, et cetera, and so on? But I was suggesting on Twitter that maybe the way to get these Vietnamese fans back to the domestic matches is to have one of the players from the national team playing week in, week out. It's Victoria Street, the Vietnamese hub in Melbourne, if people are watching from interstate and aren't familiar with it, is just a stone's throw from Swan Street, from Amy Park, the stadium, or Melbourne Rectangular Stadium, as we call it, when we're playing in the AFC.
Yep.
And Vietnam has some handy players who I think would be excellent as additions to the A-League, particularly... I mean, it might be too late. His stock may have risen too high, but Nguyen Quang Hai, the pint-sized left-footed playmaker, who is just an absolute wizard with the ball, and I think would comfortably fit the standard of the A-League, even as a star foreign import or a marquee signing.
Yeah, it's like, I agree with you in terms of trying to find those markets. That whole fish where the fish are kind of adage from David Gallup we'll probably see in the crowd tonight from MacArthur versus Western United. But what we have done previously in the past, and I touch on it in my book, Be My Guest, when Kazoo played for Sydney FC and he had three home games for them. This is the start of the A-League, so 2005. They marketed to the Japanese community. There's Japanese newspapers in Sydney. There's Japanese restaurants. They had to buy 4 tickets for the price of 3, and they got the crowd up with something like 15,000 Japanese fans in one of the games. So absolutely what you're suggesting can happen and can work with these different migrant communities, new Australian communities all the way around the country that they can do this. So yes, agreed. There's obviously going to be some talent there. We can see there's a lot of pace, a lot of ability. I think it would work. It would get some numbers in, that's for sure.
So looking into this situation with Quang Hai, his contract, he was on a really long-term contract at Hanoi, and it's due to expire in the off-season. But there are a number of clubs talking to him. I thought his most likely destination would be the J-League, but apparently Hanoi are trying to give him this massive signing bonus to stay in Vietnam, and because he's such a star attraction there. So maybe he's not the player. Maybe that's an unrealistic target. But even some of the other players in that starting 11 for Vietnam, I think would still attract some attention if they were marketed in the right way.
Yeah, agreed.
And it just doesn't have to be a Vietnamese player. I mean, and you just got to look at the demography of Australia and the largest ethnic groups and which of those are into soccer and which of those are based near the grounds and in the cities where we have teams and try and get some good footballers. And we've seen today that the Melbourne City have announced another Japanese signing. The last one didn't go too well. He didn't really get near the first team very often. But this one comes to us from Toronto FC. He's been pushed out of his foreign spot at Toronto because a certain Lorenzo Insigne is taking it up. So Australia getting the offcuts from the MLS.
Yeah, and it's hard to see. I mean, we looked at a few highlights before the show. It's hard to ascertain how he's going to be. But again, we talked about it before with the Asians Champion League coming up and where we're placed. We need to embrace Asian players more into our local competition. We are a part of the Asian Confederation. Works for us when it comes to the Asian Cup. It has worked for us in the last 3 qualifications. And then we got the ability or the chance to make it again this time around. We need to embrace Asia. We can't say it enough.
Yeah, exactly. And Tsubasa Endo is the player who's just been announced at 5 p.m. today as Melbourne City signing for the rest of the season. He looks like kind of second striker, sort of winger type. Maybe he can operate in the midfield free. It seems like the same dilemma they've been having with Marco Tilio, but he certainly adds to the attacking depth, and I suspect this might spell the end for Manuel Pucciarelli, who's barely sighted the first team despite arriving as a much vaunted foreign player and didn't even get into the makeshift 11 that they played in the last round.
Well, he made the highlights because he was hugging Diamanti at the start of the game and obviously talking Italian with him. You're right. And also not to take out the fact that there will be FIFA windows that the A-League will still play games and have a lot of a rush of games coming through where that attacking part of Melbourne City will be in the Socceroos squad. So you talk about who do we have? We had Leckie, we had McLaren, we had Tilio. Naboot was injured for the A-League, so he's a fringe Socceroo, and we also had Connor Metcalf. So in terms of attacking type players, that's what they need that depth for because they're going to have to rely on Kolakovsky and the like. So yeah, that's what they probably brought him in for. You know, the last minute January transfer. Let's get this guy. We need an attacker. Where can we find one?
So Oman, 3 a.m. kickoff. They're coached by the Croatian Branko Ivankovic, who has coached the likes of, in Asia, Al-Ahly and Persepolis. He's also been in charge of clubs like Dinamo Zagreb, coached Iran in the earlier period in the 2000s. I think they were Asian Champions League finals with Persepolis in Iran in 2018. So the coach has some pedigree. Apparently they're a much improved outfit, and these sort of mid-ranking Middle Eastern sides away from home can be a bit of a banana skin for the Socceroos. I've seen with Jordan in the past has proved a very difficult game. So what are you expecting tonight? Are we expecting to win done?
Well, as you mentioned, Oman's last roll of the dice for them to try and pinch third spot in the group so they can aim for that playoff spot. I would think it won't be an easy win if we do win. So we need the 3 points. We desperately need the 3 points. So let's hope. I'll say 2-1 to us.
2-1. I think that's a good prediction. I'm pretty much on the same page. I'm optimistic about this particular game after the Vietnam performance and the form that Rogic seems to be in, and the confidence that will come from that result. The test comes in the next couple of games against Japan and Saudi Arabia, because that's the kind of caliber of opposition where Graham Arnold has and this team have found their ceiling and haven't got past. We lost to the UAE at the Asian Cup in 2019. We very well could have lost to Saudi Arabia at home just a few months ago. We lost to Japan away. So those 2 crunch games to try and get the automatic spot are looking dicey for me still, but I'm optimistic about this Oman game at the very least.
Well, there was a bit of euphoria from last Thursday's game in terms of the crowd, the atmosphere, the result, the way they played, but they should have won 4-0. At least we would have taken that at the start, given where we are in the group and where they are. So let's hope it rolls into tonight and we get the 3 points, and then we've got the do or die clashes coming up in March. But I was excited because the The Japan game in Sydney is the Thursday night before the Football Writers Weekend in Football Writers Festival in Jamboree. So I'm like, I was up there anyways. That's fantastic. So I'll get to go to that. So I'm looking forward to that.
Travelling Socceroos support. We love to see it. So Japan versus Saudi Arabia tonight is a big game for our World Cup prospects. As much as it seems odd, I think everybody should be cheering for Saudi Arabia in this one, because if Australia wins and Saudi Arabia wins tonight, we leapfrog Japan into second spot in the table, and then Japan, they need to come to Sydney and get something.
That's right, and we can't really take top spot the way it is placed at the moment. And those last two games are going to be so hard. Let's not sugarcoat it. It's going to be very, very tough. So let's get those 3 points tonight. Let's cheer on Saudi Arabia for the early game. See where we go.
Come on, Saudi Arabia. I've just bought a Newcastle United season ticket. I'm all aboard the Saudi Arabian train. No, if they win their next two games, it could get to the point where our game away in Riyadh is in fact a dead rubber for them, and they potentially rotate players, and it makes it a little bit easier. But of course, we've got to get past Japan in Sydney first. Permutations. We'll mull over those during the break. On the other side, we've got an A-League coaching appointment and a sacking to talk about. The Western Sydney Wanderers in the headlines again. Mark Rudan is the man to replace Carl Robinson. Get your questions in, your opinions in during the break, and we'll catch you on the other side here on the Oz Football Hour, presented by GIS.
Launch your global career in football business. Study a master's degree online with unique access to the MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Brought to you by the Global Institute of Sport, who also have campuses at the iconic Wembley Stadium in London and Etihad Stadium in Manchester. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2022. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Vickery looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind top or Stanley? It doesn't matter! Costa Barbarouses! Wow!
Like a salmon, a spawning salmon. And Diamante again. Oh, he's done it!
Unbelievable kick. Mamma mia.
Oh, Carl Robinson's tenure as Western Sydney Wanderers head coach is over. Sacked after just 7 games this season after a disappointing campaign last season as well. All of the fury around his departure from the Newcastle Jets and the players that he pinched are a bit of a storm in a teacup in the end, because Western Sydney didn't really get anywhere under his stewardship, and they've wasted no time. First thing Monday morning, announcing Mark Rudan as his successor on a caretaker appointment until the end of the campaign. Rudan last coached Western United, was dispensed with after they finished in the bottom 2, but you know, he did do some good things with Wellington Phoenix, and he did make the finals, and I think finished 3rd or 4th with Western United in his first season there. So he certainly has some pedigree, and definitely is Western Sydney through and through, unless you count his tenure as Sydney FC captain. Josh Parrish and Jason Goldsmith with you on the Oz Football Hour, presented by GIS. GIS.sport/FNR is the place to go to find out how to kickstart your career in football business. Jason, let's start with Robinson first. What did you make of his tenure in charge? What the hell is going on in Wonderland? And do you think Rudan can do anything about it?
Whoa. Slow down.
This is one by one.
Carl Robinson. So, is there a little bit of karma? Like we've got this high-profile Welsh guy who played a bit of high-level football himself. I think he played. Did he play with Tim Cahill? He was at New York Red Bulls for a while. I mean, he might have been with Thierry Henry. So he got a little bit of pedigree as a player. Coached Alphonse Davies in the Vancouver Whitecaps, who's doing a little bit of okay stuff now with in Germany. So he's got a good background. He signs with Newcastle, brings the family out, bit of a, coach around the world, that kind of thing. But then he deserts them and he goes to Western Sydney Wanderers. And then some of the recruitment there with the Wanderers is interesting, to say the least. When he brought on McDonald last year and he had all those strikers, in the team but couldn't finish. And
when he called out the team for having no leaders and no characters.
Yeah, and when some of the press conferences, when he's like, that's a very good question, I don't know. Things like that. Like normally press conferences, that's been his strong point. He's actually been able to sell the dream somewhat, but he has not delivered at all. And it's an interesting one too, because if you think he's clearly lost the dressing room, there's a lot of off-field issues with the Wanderers too. Players like Bernie Abini have followed him to 3 different clubs, come through. So he might be a good man manager as well, one-on-one, but said tactically maybe not. But the game, his last game, they were woeful Saturday night. I'm not sure many people would have watched it because Ash Barty was playing at the same time. But if you check out the replay or the highlights, they were terrible.
Yeah, they were pretty horrendous against Brisbane Roar. 3-0 defeat to a team that's been at the foot of the table all season. Robertson, for me, and his kind of media persona, it's extraordinary. I've interviewed him a couple of times on here, and trying to pin him down on anything is impossible. I think he's gone to some of those seminars, how to win friends and influence people, because you ask him a question, you try and ask him the tough questions about, what's going on in the Wanderers and the expectations. We were interviewing pre-season, so I was trying to say things like, surely no excuses now. I mean, you've signed all these players and so forth. And he responds with this kind of long-winded answer that goes through all these different topics, and he starts talking about what he wants to talk about, and you completely forget what you've asked at the end of the answer and can't tell what he's just told you. He's like...
That's not me listening to you right now. I don't know where you're going.
Exactly. No, it's a totally circuitous kind of response, but he sounds so confident in everything that he says, and you can see why a slippery guy like that can influence and earn the confidence of and charm sort of executive types that make these decisions in hiring coaches and owners as well. Apparently Paul Lederer, the Western Sydney Wanderers owner, actually pushed for Robinson because he took a shine to him. So I think the Wanderers need a little bit more football direction and a little less personality politics when they're choosing who is in charge of all of this.
There's 5 coaches in 5 years since Popper at the Wanderers. Let's look at it. Let's spin it slightly on a positive way. This makes it that all of the A-League coaches are now Australian coaches. So if we want to develop and get the next Postecoglou, Muscat, Arnold, etc., we all now have Australian coaches. That's great. They will be more likely to develop, hopefully, in theory, younger Aussie talent. So maybe that's going to help push through to the national team in that respect. But he was a salesman. There was nothing. If you go down to the nitty gritty of all the answers to those questions, there's not much. We didn't see much substance in those few seasons with us. Newcastle people would be quite happy, I'm guessing, given how that sort of went about.
There's peak Schadenfreude at Newcastle Jets at the moment, I bet.
The karma bus massively. But yeah, anyway, they lost 3-0 on Saturday night. They could have lost 5 or 6-0. They seriously didn't get anywhere near it. They were horrible. Yeah.
So I'm just going to read a quote here in the Sydney Morning Herald from John Satsimas defending the club's decision to hand Robinson full control over all signings and not really having a director of football in charge of that kind of thing. The head coach needs to be able to govern the way he wants to convey his team on the pitch, being able to bring in the players he identifies the way he wants to play, he said. When we invest in a coach, we believe in him and believe in the structure that he'll bring. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for Carl, but having said that, Mark is here to pick up the pieces. I guess he could have added, unfortunately, it didn't work out for Carl or Marcus or Josip or JP.
Yeah.
Or, like, how many coaches need to fail for the Western Sydney Wanderers ownership to realise that the backroom staff and the front office side of things is not fit for purpose?
And are they doing reference checks? Because there's all those names that you told me all got second gigs, or was their second gig as well?
Yeah.
It's a good thing that they're reinvesting into Australian coaches, right? So John Aloisi, Mark Rudan, etc. This is a good thing. I think they see this as a good thing for us long term, hopefully. And we'll see that turn around. But they did say that they gave Carl Robinson like full control of the football department. So there was no one really, who was he accountable to?
No.
I guess the fans in the end, but
yeah.
We want the Wanderers to be. We need the Wanderers to be successful. There's nothing better when they were up and about with full house. That was. I don't want to say peak A-League, but it's fantastic to watch, and we need that happening again. So hopefully for them and for the competition, it turns around, because we would like a strong Wanderers, wouldn't we?
Well, 5 coaches, 5 years. Rudan is the 6th. Is he a good appointment? I'm not sure. He is vehemently disliked among certain portions of the Australian football fan base and soccer Twitter and et cetera and so on. I think that dislike is more personal than it is professional.
Yeah.
And honestly, in my dealings with him, in terms of press conferences and so forth, he's always been an immensely impressive operator tactically. He will always talk about the game with you. Most coaches are so guarded about their plans that it's actually really refreshing to have a guy come out and say, explain what he was trying to do, explain what his team was trying to do, where they fell short or where they succeeded even.
Yep.
And that's refreshing from a media perspective, and trying to get people interested in the A-League, to have a guy who's entertaining in press conferences and actually answers your questions. And it shows off, I guess, when he's doing that, it does show off his tactical brain and his intellect. But my question with him is man management, and, the locker room at Western United seemed to completely fall apart in the second year of his tenure, in the sort of latter stages of his reign.
Yep.
The motivation in that squad when they got beaten, 5-1 by Melbourne Victory at Amy Park in front of an empty stand, was rock bottom. No one could be bothered running anymore, and there were players arguing with each other on the pitch, and it was a mess emotionally. So that's my question.
I agree with you. As a media pundit, his analysis is fantastic, or has been. And you look at the progression, right? So from NPL, finally to get a go at Wellington, and did really well at the Phoenix.
Yep.
And then he wanted to come home for his family. His family's in Sydney, right? So he comes home for his family for a job in Melbourne. So again, right, his family didn't move down with him to Melbourne, did they?
No.
So
not initially anyway.
So does a good job at the Phoenix. Does a good job at Western United first year. Second year, not so good. What's going on separately, right? So he's from Sydney. He's back in Sydney. He wanted to be back in Sydney. So that might make the difference. The only problem you have, he's basically a caretaker till the end of the season, and he's working with a squad he didn't pick. So what can he do? He's going to have to work out the pros and cons of his players, put it together and say, this is how we're going to play for the rest of the season. But there's plenty of games to work it out. We were talking before, there's almost an A-League game every night now. Not that you would know it, but they've got to make up all those COVID games. And so, there'll be plenty of football for him to watch and learn from, and plenty of games for the Wanderers to really put it out there.
The other thing is, I'm slightly surprised that they've gone straight away with Rudan and not appointed one of Fileti or particularly Gary Van Egmond as the caretaker.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a blow for Van Egmond, I assume. I mean, maybe he doesn't have that aspiration anymore.
Yeah.
But I assumed when I saw that appointment he is here to take over and pick up the pieces once they have to sack Robinson.
Yeah,
I think we said it last week on the show.
He was there. He was ready to go. He was warming up on the sidelines. But
it was like Rene Mullenstein brought in as co-head coach alongside Martin Yole at Fulham when they were going to get relegated. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but
that's too obscure for me. I do have some Fulham mates that are Fulham fans, so shout out to John if you're listening. Interesting to see. I'm not sure. They've got a game tomorrow, so we'll be able to see it fairly quickly. They're hosting Perth Glory Wednesday night, so if you can, manage to stay up after the Socceroos game to the next kickoff, which is Wednesday night, you'll be able to check it out and see what he does. It'll be interesting to see, that's for sure.
Yeah, Rudan has favoured a back three in his previous tenure as Western United manager, and at Wellington Phoenix in his second season as well. I think at the start he was playing a 4-2-3-1, which might work better with the personnel that Wanderers have available, given that they're losing centre backs. Reece Williams is out for a long time. Maybe they could go back to the back three and bring Ziggy Gordon in as maybe the right-sided centre back and go that way. I'm not sure whether it's a formation issue or a selection issue, but there are certain players who the Wanderers have signed this season who just haven't lived up to the billing, who haven't lived up to expectations. And for me, Bernie Abini and Tomer Hemed are chief among them. And I would like to see changes in that department because they seem to always start when they're fit.
Yep.
And their best game this season has come with Ogawa playing as a false nine in that 3-3 draw against Melbourne City at Amy Park. They were fantastic to watch. Yes, they were porous on the defensive end, but maybe you can figure that out. And that was only because Abini was unavailable and Hamed, I think, was coming back from COVID or something and was benched. So that was a selection of necessity.
Did Robinson miss that game, though, from memory?
That was the game that Robinson coached from his hotel room.
That's right, yeah. Well,
so maybe that was...
Worked for Arnie on Thursday night at the Rectangular Stadium, so yeah.
That's the way to coach at Amy Park. Don't be on the sideline. But maybe it's an addition by subtraction.
So, the longest lockdown city in the world. We're used to it. We can actually thrive in that situation, perhaps.
Perhaps. But Mark Rudan, let us know your thoughts on the appointment. Western Sydney fans are certainly divided, but I think he will provide certainly an uptick in form, at least in the short term.
He's just got to get them motivated to play. They look like they don't want to be there, or the players just look like they don't want to be there. So he changed that up. They all got short contracts. Surely they need to impress.
Yeah, longer term, I'm not sure, about his sort of management of egos in the dressing room and so forth. It seemed to go sour at Western United, and maybe he left before that could happen at Wellington Phoenix. But certainly for the immediate term, I'm expecting big new manager bounce for the Wanderers, and then might even propel them, to within finals contention, because they've got an amazing squad on paper.
Yeah.
It's just they just haven't found the formula to make those players work together. I mean, Ugarkovic, Antonis, there are so many good players in this team, and they should be a lot higher in the table than they are. Let's take another short break. On the other side, we've got a certain Scottish import to talk about. We might even have a little listen to what he said post-game. Jason Cummings, the Cumdog, touching down in Australia and arriving with a bang with a goal on debut. Cumdog chat coming up on the other side of this break on the Oz Football Hour, presented by the Global Institute of Sport.
Ever wanted a career in football? From TV deals to player transfers, football is now a global multi-billion-dollar industry in need of qualified professionals who know the sport inside and out. Brought to you by the Global Institute of Sport, the Masters of Football business is delivered by experts from Australia and around the world. Learn online with unique access to networking and guest speaker events at the iconic MCG. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree. Apply now to start in February 2022. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. gis.sport/FNR.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
No, it feels good, Obviously not used to the heat, back in Scotland's a wee bit colder than this, so it was quite tough to, get used to the different climate. And I was blowing after the first 10 minutes, but I managed to get used to it. We go 1-0 down, managed to get a goal, and then I score a decent goal to get us 2-1. It was looking good, but then, we got a little bit sloppy at the end, and, it ended up being a bit of a poor result for us, which is a wee bit gutting. Hopefully you see the Joker celebration every game. I think I need to copyright that celebration if people start copying me. Maybe get on FIFA one day. No, it helps massively, It puts me in the shot window so everyone can see what I'm capable of over here. And it'd be a dream come true if I can get a call up to the Socceroos. So it's something that I'll be driving towards, but most importantly, I just want to do well for the Mariners. Score as many goals as I can.
Jason Cummings, not backwards about coming forwards with his Socceroos ambitions after his goal on debut for the Central Coast Mariners. He looked completely spent after his hour or so on the park in the heat. But Maya, did he provide the Mariners with some energy and bustle up front?
How entertaining was he? He was so entertaining. And if you can get the chance to look at the vision of that post-match interview, he's just wearing the vest. All the tats are on display with his arms and his legs. He's just wearing the vest. But he hopefully continues in that form. So we want a box office star. Socks sort of down. He was struggling in the heat. You could see it. He wasn't backing up. He only lasted 60 minutes before he was taken off, but he scored the goal to put him up. So he has the ability to really help them.
In that post-match interview, he looked like a State 4 player in a pre-season training friendly. Like he was just, as you say, just wearing the bib and completely drenched in sweat.
The beer can afterwards, that would make it proper village.
And of course the tats down both arms as well. And he was kind of squinting to try and, and turning his ear to try and understand the sideline report. It was great stuff.
It was. I mean, they talked about the weather though. They talked about how humid it was, and he's fresh off the boat about 4 or 5 days or something like that. So he only had 2 training runs with the team and the rest of it. So to score on debut is fantastic. I'm not sure if he's cleared to play in the FFA Cup final this Saturday night.
No, the competition rules state that any player signed after the semi-finals cannot play in the final. But Sean Millercamp has asked FFA, or Football Australia, I should say, for an exemption. Saying that given, the rules in place for a cup competition not staged in the era of COVID where you've got multiple cancellations of games and postponements and so forth, and it's all been chaos to get this final actually played, surely you can turn a blind eye and let him play in the showpiece final.
We want him. We want the Cumdog. Seriously, we need him there. He has the Joker celebration when he scores as well. His Instagram's very, very amusing because he's surfing for the first time and all the rest of it. And for those that aren't aware, we've mentioned it a few times, he's an Australian mum, so he actually can be a potential Socceroo.
We're going to have more Scottish players than local Aussies in the national team.
Well, they took Lyndon Dykes, and we're taking 3. So
one Lyndon Dykes for Harry Sutar, Martin Boyle, and Jason Cummings might actually be a fair trade in the end.
So not only did he score the goal and also, looked very amusing how much he was struggling in the heats, but I don't know if you recall, there was a foot race with Elvis Kamsober at some stage, which was, I thought, he's actually keeping up with him, and then he realised he wasn't going to.
And so he just wiped him out?
Yeah, yellow card and knocked him down. But, it could have been a lot worse because he swung one leg and then the other and then an arm and stuff like that. He kept with him for about 10 metres and then he's like, I'm not going to catch this guy. Great to watch.
I mean, we're kind of leaning into the meme and the personality, but I actually think he's pretty good. He's handy. He's a real nightmare for a defender to mark because he's always on the move.
Yep.
He's always running from the blind side, trying to pressure you when you've got the ball. He's not afraid to put his body into you, but he's got a decent turn of pace, as you say.
Yeah, he held it up well early before he scored that goal. He didn't touch it too much because it's obviously still trying to literally find his feet with the weather and the team. But yeah, it was great. It's a shame that they got done in the end because at 2-1 up and he's come off. They're looking all right, the Mariners. This would be a great result.
When he came off, I think they lost the outlet ball because the Mariners are a simple, hard-working 4-4-2 kind of team. And, you've got Marco Arena and Cummings up front now. So Maresh can move to the wing and, he's not a player that really makes runs in behind. He's a player that likes to create with the ball at his feet. So when you've got 2 strikers who can both break off the last defender and make a run and also come to the ball and hold it up, then it makes a very unpredictable proposition for predominantly four-man defences who are used to marking one centre forward and not two. So I think they're actually a dangerous proposition for the rest of the league. They're a point of difference, the Mariners. It's kind of like watching Burnley in the Premier League or something.
And Bozanic has been in great form for as well, trying to he scored a really good goal, but he's also been provider, doing very, very well. So Cummings had one shot and scored a goal. And we contrast that with Trent Bahaja, who we talked about last week. And I talked him up about, how good he looked at Sydney FC with Ninkovic and stuff. He missed some sitters. He was one-on-one with the keeper twice, I think. And once missed it, kicked it out of ground.
Yeah, he completely missed the ball at one point. He just lost his feet. It looked like he had his shoes on the wrong foot. Bahaja is the most frustrating player when he gets into the final third. He's always going at a million miles an hour and he's always missing gilt-edged opportunities.
Yeah, you probably got to learn to slow down somehow. I don't think the brain doesn't keep up with the feet. It doesn't compute because there's a few heavy touches there and a few things. He missed, some crazy ones. And then, Bobo got scored a goal, ruled offside. VAR intervened for Sydney FC and then it brought it back to 2-2.
Yeah, and it was Caceres who scored the winner for Sydney after his earlier penalty to bring it back to 2-1. But, he was looking good, Caceres. I thought it was actually Max Burgess who changed the game when he came off the bench. In his sort of job share with Ninkovic, they always sub off or on for one another, and he had a particularly good game in that last half an hour when the Mariners were tiring.
Yeah.
Burgess, it went almost unnoticed by the commentators. I don't know what game they were watching, but I thought he deserved some more plaudits. He didn't get any of the votes that they do at the end of the game on Paramount. But I thought he was exceptional. It was his little reverse ball that led to the Caceres winner. Max Burgess, I think, is a top player and he's not being utilised to his full potential at Sydney this season.
No. The polish of that finish was fantastic too, with Caceres just flicking it up to then to put on the outside of the boot as well. It was really the last 20 minutes that Sydney FC came to the fore to win it. A good result for them given the few games prior to that.
Yeah, it's a result that Steve Corica needed, but all the headlines were about Jason Cummings, and I think rightly so. So will he play in the FFA Cup final? We're not sure. Don't know yet if Football Australia will give the go-ahead, the exemption. I'm sure Victory won't be keen to face him. He's not a fun guy to mark. I imagine he's yapping in your ear at every opportunity as well when the ball's down the other end.
We want a point of difference. We want a selling point. We want a full house. We'll probably get a full house anyway at Amy because it's Victory, but we want... for the TV game, live coverage on free to air of the final. We want all the characters there. We want to make it half a chance because the way Melbourne Victory finished off their semi-final against Wellington Phoenix, I think they were going to the cup final at home as the favourites.
Yeah, and I think Mielkamp makes a decent point in that the Mariners played their semi-final, 2 weeks before Victory did?
Yeah.
So theoretically, Victory has 2 more weeks to sign a player for the final than the Mariners do. And if the semi-final had been this weekend, just as Victory's was, then Cummings would be eligible. So I think that's a decent point. The games weren't played at the same time. Therefore, the rules are not the same for both teams. Therefore, let him play. Come on.
We want him to play. We want to Cumdog.
Even as I'm a Victory fan, I still want to see him on the pitch. It'd make the game more interesting. So that one's going to be at Amy Park. Victory managed to secure their place in the FA Cup final with a 4-1 win over Wellington. They went a goal down in this game, but turned it on in the second half. A couple of goals from Nick D'Agostino. A nice strike from Josh Brillante as well. And Ben Falami looks to be in the form of his career. You were pretty impressed with him.
I was, very much so. So, providing the assists, scoring the goals, really was... He really is playing some good football. It didn't seem to be that way last year. Everyone's like, this is the guy that's, spent some time in the UK, but he's really starting to put it together. Sometimes a different coach will do that for you, a bit of faith in the rest of it. I mean, they really came home with a wet sail, the Victory, but, Phoenix were 1-0 up and then they had a goal ruled out for offside in the 60 minutes. They could have been 2-0 up at some stage as well, but they really did come home and those last 10 minutes, it was all Melbourne Victory and, And people were talking up Robbie Cruz as well as Falami. So some actual form for those guys coming in.
Yeah. Falami, I think it's early days. He's had a couple of good weeks. He had a great big blue against Sydney. He had a great game in the semi-final, but let's pump the brakes ever so slightly. I mean, he's played for the Olyroos.
Yep.
Looked good in patches for them. I don't know if the consistency is just there yet to put him in national team conversations or anything, but, he's playing well and, long may it continue for a guy who's so good at running at defenders.
We tend to get excited when young players play 4 or 5 games in a row that are good. We want young players to put together 2 or 3 years in a row that's any good, and then get the chance to. He's come back to develop and get minutes, which is what he's getting, and then if he's good enough, he'll sign for a team abroad, which is what we would hope for our guys to do that have any national team ambitions. So let's not get too excited. Let's just hope that this form continues. He's 22. He's got plenty of time. Get some form together. Maybe they win the cup on Saturday night and he scores and he helps them, whatever, puts him in the shop window for whatever he wants to do from here.
That 3-man punch off the bench for victory, Chris Economides, Robbie Cruz, Nick D'Agostino, is, I would argue, up there with the very best in the competition, that bench depth. And those 3 players would all be pushing for a start, of course, especially Economides, because he was signed as their star player in the off-season, but he's been troubled by injury. But Cruz in a bit-part role, he's had so many injury problems. He's a divisive player when it comes to national team, of course, but I've always been a massive fan of him. And playing as that number 10 off the bench, I thought he was exceptional. The way he linked up, the way he maybe fed the ball to Falami in positions that were more threatening and made the Wellington fence turn on their heels and chase. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, Economides is one of those guys we talked about that we got excited about early too.
Yep.
He got capped probably before he should have, just to sort of push off Greece away from looking at them. So you want him to get him minutes as well. I agree with Cruz. If his ego's okay with him coming off the bench, then that's the perfect role for him, because the last 20 minutes, with his skills and his pace, that he will make the difference in plenty of games if he's coming off the bench. D'Agostino should be pushing for a starting spot, so that punch coming off is amazing. We saw what he did with the Olyroos and getting him to qualify for the Olympics, and he showed some glimpses at Perth as well. Another one we want to push through. But I would think, if Robbie Cruz is okay with that, because he struggled a lot last year, 20 minutes off the bench, he'd be ideal.
D'Agostino for me is an interesting one. He's a player that I've struggled to get a handle on. Sometimes he has horrendous games. He's such a confidence player. Sometimes he scores wonder goals and will miss sitters, and he's sort of a bit of an enigma. But when the game opens up a bit, he gets on the end of stuff. Yeah. He gets there before defenders, and that's why I think, at least in the short term, probably better used as an impact substitute.
Well, he's scoring the goals that way, isn't he? So he's
exactly.
leading this goal scorer for victory, and he's getting them.
He hasn't scored that many goals starting, but he scored plenty of goals off the bench. So why would you change that formula when you've got a guy who's almost guaranteed to, stick one in the back of the net if you bring him on in the last 20 minutes? I mean, that's a luxury that few coaches have. And Marjota, even though he hasn't been scoring that often, I think he provides a little bit more link play. When the game is tight or when the game is against set defences, when he can receive the ball in tight than D'Agostino usually does. But D'Agostino's got that physical edge that tells against tired players. So I would keep it that way if I was Popovic. I mean, it's a selection dilemma for him now, because you've got one striker in form and one who's maybe not hitting the target as often as he should. But victory faced Central Coast Mariners in the FFA Cup final, and we saw the ticket release, and they haven't price gouged, at least the existing
$30,
members.
I think $30. Yeah, not too bad.
Nice one. I think we'll get a packed out stadium as a result.
Will Jason Davidson change his hair colour for a final, do you think?
The gold one, just like they have a gold World Cup ball?
Well, he's had the platinum blonde, and he's had the blue, and now the pink. So
maybe
would you do it for a final? Navy blue?
Yeah. Okay. He's had the sky blue, which
White
I thought was I wasn't a huge fan of, to be honest. There's a lot of photoshops of him looking like a pool cube versus the finger bun of the bright pink that we've got at the moment. I'm not sure what he's got in store for us, but I can't wait to find out. Last ones to go through on this program before we go to our second hour, and welcome Pakua Frimpong on for Radio Dub. All of our Matildas chat will be at the top end of that program, so stay with us.
I'm really looking forward to that, because they dominated all of our chat prior to coming on today. The Matildas, yes, I'll leave it to you. You guys are the experts. You would talk about the dub stuff. But
they certainly made all the headlines. But we've got a dedicated women's football show coming up in the second hour, so stay tuned for that. But Western United beating Melbourne City 1-0. Did you watch this, Jason, or were you glued to the tennis like everybody else?
Party at my house, absolutely. So I watched the highlights of this. So it was tough because there were 6 changes to the City side. yeah, it was a big chance for Western United. There wasn't a big crowd there, Western United home game. I think most of the fans were down, the football fans were down Geelong. Oh, we're watching Ash Barty. So, 1-0 to Western United. The clear highlight for me was probably Tom Glover's penalty save from Diamanti. I didn't realise that Diamanti scored 7 or 8 goals in his first season, only one last season, and he had yet to score this season. So that might happen with age, but he hit that with some force, and it was a tremendous save. But as we mentioned, sometimes the last week when Glover saved a pen against Adelaide, I think it was, they scored a goal not long after, and that was the winner from Lustica not long after that penalty attempt.
Yeah, and Lustica occasionally comes up with an important goal. He's played reasonably well this season, but Western United, for me, their strength is just their backline. And one player ended up hitting a milestone game, Nikolai Topor-Stanley, 350 A-League appearances.
Pretty amazing, and he's from Canberra originally as well, which has produced a few decent footballers of note, and Ned Zelic and Carl Valeri quickly, Andy Bernal, if you're listening, and Tom Rogic, of course. So a great career for him. He's played at a few clubs, as is most the case with the A-League, but 350 is nothing to be sneezed at. And a nice touch from Scott Jamieson, who made the players from Melbourne City form a guard of honour for him as they walked off the pitch. So a well done to Nikolai.
Yeah, one of those few players who... did he play in the NSL? He had a few games for Manly United. Was that? No, it wasn't NSL, was it?
NPL.
Yeah, NPL. Yep. So, no, he didn't actually play in the NSL. My apologies. But, we've got very few remaining players from that. They might have all gone this season. I think
they have.
Is it Liam Reddy is the last one?
Liam's still going.
He's still on the books.
Hanging on. Yeah.
That's the last one. I knew there was one. But Nikolai Topor-Stanley hitting that milestone game, and from all reports, and we've chatted to him a little bit on the green room. He's a model professional, and whatever he's doing in terms of his physical preparation is working.
Yeah, good on to him.
I think he needs to run a course for the youngsters coming through on how they keep their bodies right. We had another milestone, second youngest ever A-League goal scorer. Again, an Adelaide United player, so he doesn't even get the club record, but missing out by about a month to his teammate Moture Nestori Irankunda, scoring a banger of a free kick to equalise for Adelaide United in their away game late against Newcastle Jets.
How awesome, giving the 15-year-old the free kick. Yeah. There's no old pros going, no, this is mine. He got the free kick. That drew them level, and then they scored an injury time winner. So just amazing that Carl Viet has the faith in his kids to do that. That's the more impressive thing for me. Clearly got some talent. But a wonderful goal. Fair play to Newcastle. They hadn't played a game for 42 days. That's almost like a pre-season break or off-season break. 42 days. They come back, they hit the lead, couldn't quite hang on. I think the free kick was in the 88th minute and the winner was in injury time. So,
story of their season, though, is that they can't maximise winning positions. They can't hold on. They play such good football. They're so good to watch. This game maybe slightly less so because physically they were coming back. And a late game fade out, not surprising for a team that hasn't played in 42 days.
Yeah.
But they created more of the chances. Up until the last 10 or 15 minutes, they were completely on top, and then Adelaide roared home with their substitutes and their young players ending up doing the business. But Nestori Irankunda, the story of the match with his goal. They ended up scoring the winner in stoppage time, their new signing from Japan, Hiroshi Ibasuki, with a terrific header following a great cross from Josh Cavallo, securing the 3 points, and another result for Newcastle that they'd rather forget after a good team performance. But hopefully when they get match fitness, they'll be able to see games out more often, because I think they're one of the best teams to watch in the A-League. Unfortunately, we haven't seen them for so long. It's hard to remember that they were one of the best teams to watch, but they play some nice attacking football, and I would love to see them in the finals race.
Yeah, and they don't have to wait too long for the next game too. So they're up Thursday against Brisbane Roar. So hopefully they can take some of that momentum in there. The Roar's probably a good team to get at that stage as well, I would think. I mean, they had the Wanderers, so they're not not really that tired.
No, but Newcastle, they're bottom of the league, but they've only played 6 games. So who the hell knows how good they really are. And last one before we go, we've got an Old Firm derby coming up on Thursday morning. Only relevant to this show because of Ange Postecoglou in the dugout, but a nice 6:45 a.m. kickoff time for us on the east coast of Australia. And Rangers have made a star signing on the eve of this game.
Yeah, on loan from Juventus, Aaron Ramsey, the ex-Arsenal and Welsh player. So that'll be interesting to watch. So if Celtic beat Rangers, they will go to the top, which we probably have to barrack for because of Ange. But yeah, some breakfast Ange ball at that time. If you've got KO, BN or Fox, make sure you're tuning in Thursday morning.
Well, we didn't get Stevie G versus Ange because Steven Gerrard was out due to COVID protocols for the first Old Firm derby of the season. But Celtic went down 1-0. A disappointing performance in that game. We'll see if they can bring it against their title rivals. It'll be another star in the other dugout, though. Giovanni van Bronckhorst is the new Rangers manager. And I think next week, maybe on the Monday or Tuesday, we'll try and catch up with our Scottish football correspondent, Chris McLaughlin, and get the fallout from that one. But that's 6:45 a.m. on Thursday morning. It was interesting on the Stan Sport FC show. They had Kevin Muscat on, and they asked him who he was supporting in this game, and he refused to answer. Of course,
the old boss and the ex-Rangers player.
Yeah. So he said, "That's a dicey one for me. I'll answer off air." Anyway,
awesome.
So he's between a rock and a hard place, divided loyalties. But can't wait for that match. I'd be lying if I said I can't wait for Socceroos versus Oman, given the kickoff time, but I'll be up in solidarity. So
that's it. Get match fit, Josh. You got to get ready.
Yeah.
You got to do these things sometimes. We've got to do them.
Got to tough it out for the sake of the national team, for the sake of the World Cup. That's coming up tonight. But stick around here on FNR. We've got Radio Dub coming up straight after this. Thank you, Jason.
Cheers, Josh.
Vickery looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind top or Stanley? It doesn't matter! Costa Barbarouses! Wow!
Like a salmon, a spawning salmon. And Diamante again. Oh, he's done it!
Unbelievable kick.